The millionaire parents of the bride laughed at the groom's poor mother's clothes as soon as they met her. But when they realized what she did for a living, the golden rays of the setting sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the luxurious penthouse apartment, casting a warm glow on the polished marble floors. Olivia Sinclair stood before the full-length mirror, adjusting the delicate diamond necklace that adorned her slender neck. At 28, she was the epitome of grace and sophistication. Her chestnut hair swept into an elegant updo, her emerald eyes sparkling with excitement. "Darling, are you ready?" Richard Sinclair's voice boomed from the living room. "We don't want to be late for our own dinner party." Olivia smiled, smoothing down her designer gown. "Coming, Dad?" she called back, taking one last look at her reflection before heading out of her room. The Sinclair family's penthouse was a testament to their wealth and status. Modern art pieces adorned the walls, each worth more than most people's annual salaries. Crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings, their light dancing off the meticulously arranged furniture. In the living room, Richard and Eleanor Sinclair stood waiting. Richard, a distinguished man in his early 60s, exuded power in his tailored suit. Eleanor, a few years younger, was the picture of refined elegance in her couture dress and perfectly coiffed blonde hair. "Oh, sweetheart, you look absolutely stunning," Eleanor gushed, air-kissing her daughter's cheeks. "Tonight is going to be perfect. I can feel it." Richard checked his Rolex. "The car's waiting downstairs. Shall we?" As they rode the private elevator down to the lobby, Olivia felt a mix of excitement and nervousness flutter in her stomach. Tonight was more than just a dinner party. It was the first time her parents would meet her fiancé, Jack, and his mother. "Now, remember," Eleanor said, her voice taking on a slightly condescending tone, "Jack's family might not be accustomed to our lifestyle. We must make them feel welcome." Olivia frowned slightly. "Mom, please. Jack and his mother are wonderful people. I'm sure you'll love them as much as I do." Richard chuckled, patting his daughter's hand. "Of course we will, Princess. We're just looking out for you, that's all." The sleek black limousine glided through the bustling New York City streets, carrying the Sinclairs to the exclusive restaurant where the dinner was to be held. Olivia gazed out the window, her mind wandering to thoughts of Jack. They had met at a charity event 6 months ago, and it had been love at first sight. Jack's kindness, intelligence, and down-to-earth nature had captured her heart completely. As they pulled up to the restaurant, Olivia spotted Jack waiting outside. Her heart skipped a beat as she saw him, handsome in his best suit, a nervous smile playing on his lips. Next to him stood an older woman in a simple dress, his mother, Martha. The Sinclairs stepped out of the limo, turning heads as they always did. Olivia rushed forward to embrace Jack, while Richard and Eleanor approached more slowly, their eyes critically assessing the newcomers. "Jack, Martha, I'm so glad you're here," Olivia said warmly. "Mom, Dad, this is Jack, and his mother, Martha." Jack stepped forward, extending his hand. "Mr. and Mrs. Sinclair, it's a pleasure to finally meet you. Olivia's told me so much about you." Richard shook Jack's hand firmly, his grip perhaps a little tighter than necessary. "Likewise, young man. We've been looking forward to this evening." Eleanor's gaze, however, was fixed on Martha. Her eyes traveled from Martha's sensible shoes to her outdated dress, a slight frown marring her perfectly made-up face. "How quaint," she murmured, loud enough for Martha to hear. Martha, sensing the scrutiny, straightened her shoulders and smiled warmly. "Mrs. Sinclair, Mr. Sinclair, thank you so much for arranging this dinner. It means a lot to us." Olivia, noticing the tension, quickly intervened. "Shall we head inside? I hear the chef has prepared something special for us tonight." As they entered the restaurant, the maitre d' immediately recognized the Sinclairs and ushered them to the best table in the house. Olivia couldn't help but notice the sideways glances her parents kept throwing at Martha, who seemed slightly overwhelmed by the opulent surroundings. Once seated, Richard took charge of ordering the wine, barely glancing at Jack or Martha for their preferences. Olivia squeezed Jack's hand under the table, silently reassuring him. As the evening progressed, Olivia found herself becoming increasingly uncomfortable with her parents' behavior. They dominated the conversation, dropping names of celebrities and politicians they knew, discussing their recent yacht purchase and generally flaunting their wealth. Jack tried to engage, sharing stories about his work as a teacher, but Richard and Eleanor seemed uninterested. Martha, for her part, remained quiet, only speaking when directly addressed. Yet there was a dignity in her silence, a quiet strength that Olivia admired. She hoped her parents would see it too, given time. As the main course arrived, Olivia silently prayed that the rest of the evening would go smoothly. Little did she know, the real drama was yet to unfold. As the main course arrived, the tension at the table was palpable. Olivia watched nervously as her father swirled his wine, his eyes narrowing as he regarded Jack across the table. "So, Jack," Richard began, his tone deceptively casual, "Olivia tells us you're a teacher. That must be rewarding." Jack nodded enthusiastically, seemingly oblivious to the undercurrent of condescension. "It really is, Mr. Sinclair. There's nothing quite like seeing a student's eyes light up when they grasp a new concept." Eleanor raised an eyebrow, delicately cutting into her filet mignon. "How quaint. But surely you have ambitions beyond that. A man in his prime should be climbing the corporate ladder, not stuck in a classroom." Olivia felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. "Mom, Jack loves his job. He makes a real difference in his students' lives." Martha, who had been quiet for most of the evening, spoke up. "Jack has always had a gift for teaching. It's his calling." Richard chuckled, the sound lacking any real warmth. "A calling? My dear woman, in this world, success is measured by the size of your bank account, not the number of gold stars you hand out." Jack's jaw tightened, but he maintained his composure. "With all due respect, Mr. Sinclair, I believe success can be measured in many ways. The impact we have on others, the lives we touch, that's what truly matters to me." An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Olivia reached for Jack's hand under the table, giving it a reassuring squeeze. She admired his ability to stand his ground without losing his cool. Eleanor, seemingly eager to change the subject, turned her attention to Martha. "And what is it that you do, Mrs.?" She trailed off, realizing she didn't know Martha's last name. "Thompson," Martha supplied with a gentle smile. "I'm a seamstress." Eleanor's eyes widened in mock surprise. "A seamstress? How interesting. I don't believe I've ever met a real seamstress before. It must be such hard work, hunched over a sewing machine all day." Martha's smile never wavered. "It can be, but I find great joy in creating beautiful things with my hands. Every stitch tells a story." Richard snorted softly, not bothering to hide his disdain. "Stories don't pay the bills, I'm afraid. Eleanor here has her own clothing line, you know, all produced in the finest factories in Milan." Olivia felt a surge of anger at her parents' behavior. She opened her mouth to speak, but Jack beat her to it. "Mr. and Mrs. Sinclair," he said, his voice calm but firm, "I understand that our backgrounds are different, but I hope you can see that what matters most is how much Olivia and I love each other. We may not have wealth or status, but we have values, integrity, and a deep respect for hard work in all its forms." For a moment, Richard and Eleanor seemed taken aback by Jack's directness. Olivia felt a swell of pride for her fiancé. The waiter chose that moment to approach the table, offering dessert menus. Grateful for the interruption, Olivia quickly engaged him in conversation about the chef's specialties. As they perused the menus, Martha excused herself to use the restroom. Eleanor watched her go, then leaned in close to Olivia. "Darling," she whispered, not quite softly enough, "are you sure about this? I mean, look at them. They're just so common. You could do so much better." Olivia recoiled as if she'd been slapped. "Mother, how could you say such a thing?" Before Eleanor could respond, Martha returned to the table. If she had overheard any of the conversation, she gave no sign of it. Instead, she smiled warmly at everyone. "This has been a lovely evening," Martha said. "Thank you so much for your hospitality." Richard waved his hand dismissively. Yes, it's been enlightening. Now, about the wedding plans." As Richard launched into a monologue about the extravagant wedding he envisioned, Olivia caught Jack's eye. She saw in his gaze a mix of love, determination, and a hint of sadness. She knew then that this dinner was just the beginning of what would likely be a challenging journey. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of forced smiles and stilted conversation. As they said their goodbyes outside the restaurant, Olivia hugged Jack tightly, whispering an apology in his ear. "Don't apologize," he murmured back. "We're in this together." As the Sinclair's limousine pulled away, Olivia watched Jack and Martha through the rear window. Despite everything, they stood tall, dignity intact. She realized that in their quiet strength, they possessed a wealth her parents couldn't begin to comprehend. The car rounded a corner, and Jack and Martha disappeared from view. Olivia turned to face her parents, a new resolve hardening in her heart. She knew that the coming days would bring difficult conversations and hard choices. But for Jack and for the love they shared, she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The following morning, Olivia woke to the sound of her phone buzzing insistently. Groggily, she reached for it, her eyes widening as she saw a string of missed calls from both her parents and Jack. A sense of unease settled in her stomach as she dialed Jack's number. "Liv?" Jack's voice came through, tense and worried. "Have you seen the news?" Olivia sat up, fully alert now. "No, what's going on?" "Turn on the TV. Channel 5. With trembling hands, Olivia grabbed the remote and flicked on the television. Her jaw dropped as she saw the headlines scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Fashion mogul Eleanor Sinclair, embroiled in fabric scandal. The news anchor's voice filled the room. In a shocking turn of events, it has come to light that Eleanor Sinclair's high-end fashion line has been using counterfeit fabrics in their products. Sources close to the company suggest that this deception has been ongoing for years, allowing the Sinclair family to amass millions in fraudulent profits. Olivia felt the blood drain from her face. She listened in stunned silence as the reporter detailed the allegations, including insider trading and tax evasion. The empire her parents had built, the lifestyle she had grown up with. It was all crumbling before her eyes. "Liv, are you still there?" Jack's voice brought her back to reality. "Yeah, I'm here," she managed to say. I can't believe this. Jack, I swear I had no idea." "I know, babe, I know." His voice was gentle, reassuring. "Listen, I'm coming over. You shouldn't be alone right now." Grateful for his support, Olivia agreed and ended the call. She sat on the edge of her bed, her mind reeling. How could her parents have done this? Had their entire life been built on lies? A soft knock on her bedroom door startled her. "Miss Olivia?" It was Maria, the housekeeper. "There are some gentlemen here from the FBI. They're asking to speak with you." Olivia's heart raced. "I'll be right out," she called, her voice shaky. In the living room, two stern-faced men in suits were waiting. They introduced themselves as federal agents and began asking questions about her parents' business dealings, her involvement in the company, and her knowledge of the fraudulent practices. Olivia answered truthfully, her shock evident in every word. She genuinely had no idea about any illegal activities. As the daughter of the family, she had been kept in the dark about the intricacies of the business. Just as the agents were wrapping up their initial questioning, the elevator dinged and Jack rushed in. Seeing the federal agents, he hesitated for a moment before moving to Olivia's side, placing a protective arm around her shoulders. "Are you okay?" he whispered. Olivia could only nod, still in a daze. The agents informed Olivia that her parents had been taken into custody for questioning and that their assets were being frozen pending investigation. They advised her to cooperate fully and to expect further inquiries in the coming days. As the elevator doors closed behind the agents, Olivia finally broke down. Sobs racked her body as Jack held her close, murmuring words of comfort. "What am I going to do?" she cried. "Everything. Everything's gone." Jack gently led her to the couch, sitting down beside her. "Hey, look at me," he said softly. "You haven't lost everything. You still have me, and I'm not going anywhere." Olivia looked up at him, her eyes red and puffy. "But after everything that happened last night, the way my parents treated you, and your mom, I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to leave." Jack shook his head firmly. "Liv, I love you. Your parents' actions don't change that. We're in this together, remember?" A wave of gratitude washed over Olivia. Despite everything, Jack was still here, still supporting her. She leaned into his embrace, drawing strength from his presence. As the day wore on, Olivia's phone buzzed constantly with calls from friends, business associates, and reporters seeking comments. She ignored them all, focusing instead on processing the shocking turn of events with Jack by her side. Late in the afternoon, there was another knock at the door. This time, it was Martha, Jack's mother. Her face was etched with concern as she entered the apartment. "I saw the news," she said softly. "I thought you might need some support." Olivia was touched by the gesture, especially given how poorly her parents had treated Martha the night before. "Thank you," she whispered, accepting the older woman's warm hug. As Martha busied herself in the kitchen, insisting on making them all a comforting meal, Olivia turned to Jack. "Your mom is amazing," she said. "After everything that happened last night, she still came to help." Jack smiled, squeezing her hand. "That's who she is. She doesn't hold grudges. She just sees someone in need and wants to help." Watching Martha move around the kitchen with quiet efficiency, Olivia felt a glimmer of hope. Her world might be falling apart, but she wasn't alone. She had Jack, and now it seemed she had Martha too. As the aroma of home-cooked food filled the apartment, Olivia realized that family wasn't just about blood or wealth. It was about love, support, and being there for each other in times of need. And in that moment, surrounded by Jack and Martha's unwavering support, she knew she could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The next few days passed in a whirlwind of legal meetings, press statements, and emotional turmoil. Olivia found herself thrust into a world she never imagined she'd be part of, one where her family name was synonymous with scandal and deceit. On a particularly draining afternoon, Olivia sat in her lawyer's office, trying to make sense of the mountain of paperwork before her. The gravity of her parents' actions was becoming clearer with each document she reviewed. "Miss Sinclair," her lawyer, Mr. Goldstein, said gently, "I know this is overwhelming, but we need to discuss your options moving forward." Olivia nodded, running a hand through her disheveled hair. "What options do I have exactly? It seems like everything's been taken away." Mr. Goldstein leaned forward, his expression sympathetic but firm. "While it's true that most of your family's assets have been frozen, you do have some personal accounts that remain untouched. They're modest compared to what you're used to, but they're legally yours." A mix of relief and guilt washed over Olivia. She had a lifeline, but it felt wrong to have anything when so many people had been hurt by her family's actions. "There's also the matter of your involvement in the company," Mr. Goldstein continued. "The investigators seem satisfied that you had no knowledge of the illegal activities. However, your position as a board member, even if largely ceremonial, complicates things." Olivia's stomach churned. "What does that mean for me?" "It means you might be called to testify," he explained. "Your testimony could be crucial in understanding the extent of the fraud." The thought of testifying against her own parents made Olivia's head spin. She excused herself and stepped out of the office, needing a moment to breathe. In the hallway, she found Jack waiting patiently. He'd insisted on accompanying her to every meeting, a steady presence in the chaos of her new reality. "How's it going in there?" he asked, concern etched on his face. Olivia shook her head, fighting back tears. It's a lot. I might have to testify against my parents, Jack. How did everything get so messed up? Jack pulled her into a comforting embrace. I know it's tough, but you're doing the right thing. Your honesty could help a lot of people who were hurt by this. As they stood there, Olivia's phone buzzed. It was a text from Martha. Dinner at our place tonight. No arguments. You both need a good meal and some peace. Despite everything, Olivia felt a small smile tug at her lips. Martha's kindness continued to be a beacon of light in these dark times. Later that evening, Olivia and Jack arrived at the modest apartment Martha called home. The contrast to Olivia's penthouse was stark, but there was a warmth here that no amount of expensive decor could replicate. Martha greeted them with hugs and ushered them inside. The small dining table was set simply but with obvious care. The aroma of home-cooked food filled the air, reminding Olivia of simpler, happier times. As they sat down to eat, Martha reached out and squeezed Olivia's hand. How are you holding up, dear? Olivia felt tears welling up again. I'm managing. It's just so much to process. I feel like I don't know who I am anymore. Martha nodded understandingly. Identity crises are tough, but they're also opportunities for growth. This is a chance for you to figure out who you want to be, separate from your family name. Jack chimed in. Mom's right. You're not defined by your parents' actions, Liv. You're your own person, and I've seen your strength these past few days. You're going to get through this. Olivia looked between Jack and Martha, overwhelmed by their support. I don't know what I'd do without you both, she admitted. As they ate, the conversation shifted to lighter topics. Martha shared funny stories from her years as a seamstress, and Jack recounted tales of his students' antics. For a few hours, Olivia felt the weight on her shoulders lift slightly. After dinner, as they were helping Martha clean up, Olivia noticed a beautiful quilt hanging on the wall. The intricate patterns and vibrant colors caught her eye. That's gorgeous, she remarked. Where did you get it? Martha's eyes twinkled. I made it, actually. It's a family tradition, passed down through generations. Each patch tells a story. Olivia listened, fascinated, as Martha explained the significance of different patterns and colors. She found herself drawn to the idea of creating something meaningful with her own hands, so different from the world of high fashion she'd grown up in. As the evening drew to a close, Olivia felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in days. The small apartment, filled with love and warmth, had become a sanctuary amidst the storm of her life. Leaving Martha's place, hand in hand with Jack, Olivia realized that while her world had been turned upside down, she was discovering new sources of strength and support. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time since the scandal broke, Olivia felt a glimmer of hope for the future. The following week brought a new challenge for Olivia. She had been summoned to testify in the preliminary hearing against her parents. As she stood outside the courthouse, her heart raced with a mix of anxiety and conflicting emotions. Jack squeezed her hand reassuringly. You've got this, Liv. Just tell the truth. That's all you need to do. Olivia nodded, taking a deep breath. I know, it's just, they're still my parents, you know? As they climbed the courthouse steps, a flurry of reporters descended upon them, shouting questions and thrusting microphones in their faces. Olivia kept her head down, grateful for Jack's steadying presence as they pushed through the crowd. Inside, the courtroom was a sea of stern faces and hushed whispers. Olivia's eyes locked with her parents as she was led to the witness stand. Richard and Eleanor Sinclair, once the picture of wealth and success, now looked haggard and defeated in their standard-issue jumpsuits. As Olivia was sworn in, she caught sight of Martha slipping quietly into the back of the courtroom. The older woman's presence brought an unexpected comfort, reminding Olivia that she wasn't alone. The questioning began, and Olivia found herself recounting details of her life that now seemed like a distant dream. She spoke of lavish parties, expensive gifts, and a lifestyle that had always been presented as the fruit of her parents' hard work and business acumen. Miss Sinclair, the prosecutor asked, Were you ever made aware of the true source of your family's wealth? Olivia shook her head. No, I wasn't. I was always told that it came from the success of my mother's fashion line and my father's investments. And you never questioned this? Olivia paused, considering her words carefully. I suppose I never had a reason to. It was the only life I knew. As the questioning continued, Olivia found herself grappling with the realization of how sheltered and naive she had been. Every answer she gave seemed to underscore her ignorance of her parents' illegal activities. When it came time for cross-examination, Olivia braced herself. Her parents' lawyer approached, his expression unreadable. Miss Sinclair, you've testified that you had no knowledge of any illegal activities, yet you were a board member of Sinclair Enterprises. How do you explain this discrepancy? Olivia swallowed hard. My position on the board was largely ceremonial. I attended meetings, yes, but I was never involved in day-to-day operations or financial decisions. So you're saying you were willfully ignorant of your family's business dealings? Before Olivia could respond, the prosecutor objected and the judge sustained it, but the implication hung heavy in the air. As Olivia stepped down from the witness stand, she felt drained. Her eyes met her parents', and for a moment she saw a flicker of something. Regret, shame, before they looked away. Outside the courtroom, Jack enveloped her in a hug. You did great, he murmured. I'm so proud of you. Martha approached, her face full of compassion. That couldn't have been easy, dear. How about we all go get some tea? I think you could use a moment of calm. Grateful for the suggestion, Olivia nodded. As they made their way to a nearby cafe, she found herself opening up about the experience. I felt so exposed up there, she admitted. Like every decision I've ever made was being scrutinized. And seeing my parents like that, it was heartbreaking. Martha patted her hand gently. It's natural to feel conflicted, Olivia. They're your parents, despite everything. But remember, you're doing the right thing by telling the truth. Jack nodded in agreement. Mom's right. Your honesty today could help a lot of people who were hurt by the fraud. As they sipped their tea, Olivia's phone buzzed with a news alert. The headline made her breath catch. Sinclair heiress testifies against parents in fraud case. I guess it's really happening, she said softly, showing Jack and Martha the screen. There's no going back now. Martha's eyes twinkled with unexpected mischief. Well, if you can't go back, the only way is forward. And speaking of moving forward, I have an idea I'd like to run by you both. Intrigued, Olivia and Jack leaned in closer as Martha began to outline her thoughts. As she listened, Olivia felt a spark of excitement ignite within her. For the first time since the scandal broke, she could see a path forward, one that didn't rely on her family name or wealth, but on her own strengths and the support of the people around her. As they left the cafe, Olivia felt a mix of emotions. Exhaustion from the day's events, lingering sadness about her parents, but also a growing sense of hope. She realized that while one chapter of her life was closing, another was just beginning to unfold. The following Saturday morning found Olivia, Jack, and Martha gathered around the small kitchen table in Martha's apartment. The air was thick with the aroma of fresh coffee and possibility as Martha laid out her idea in more detail. So, Martha began, her eyes twinkling with excitement. I've been thinking about my quilt making and your situation, Olivia. What if we combine my skills with your knowledge of the fashion industry to create something new? Olivia leaned forward, intrigued. What do you mean exactly? Martha smiled. I'm talking about starting a small business. Handmade, ethically sourced clothing and accessories. We could use traditional quilting techniques to create unique, sustainable fashion pieces. Jack nodded enthusiastically. That's brilliant, Mom. It would be a perfect way to blend your talents. Olivia's mind raced with possibilities. We could focus on using recycled fabrics, maybe even partner with local artisans. It would be the complete opposite of mass-produced, environmentally harmful fast fashion. As they brainstormed, Olivia felt a spark of excitement she hadn't experienced in weeks. This was a chance to rebuild, to create something meaningful and truly her own. But Olivia hesitated, reality setting in. Starting a business takes money. With my assets frozen and my name tainted by scandal, how would we even begin? Martha reached across the table, patting Olivia's hand. Don't you worry about that just yet. I've been saving for years, and I'd be honored to invest in this venture with you. Tears welled up in Olivia's eyes. Martha, I can't ask you to do that. It's too much. Nonsense, Martha said firmly. I believe in this idea, and I believe in you. Besides, I'm not getting any younger. It's time I put my savings to good use. Jack chimed in. I can help too. I've got some money set aside, and I'm pretty handy. We could set up a workshop right here in the apartment to start. Olivia looked between Jack and Martha, overwhelmed by their support and generosity. I don't know what to say. Thank you both so much. As they continued to plan, the outline of their new venture began to take shape. They decided to name the brand Patchwork Dreams, a nod to both Martha's quilting heritage and the idea of piecing together a new future. Olivia found herself diving into research, exploring sustainable fashion practices and ethical sourcing. Her years in the fashion industry, which had once felt like a burden of privilege, now provided valuable insight into what consumers wanted and how to navigate the market. As the day wore on, Martha brought out one of her quilts, using it to demonstrate various techniques they could incorporate into their designs. Olivia marveled at the intricacy of the stitching, the way each piece came together to form a beautiful whole. You know, Olivia mused, running her fingers over the quilt, this feels like a metaphor for what we're doing, taking separate pieces of our lives and skills and stitching them together into something new and beautiful. Jack smiled, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. That's a lovely way to look at it, and just like a quilt, it'll keep getting stronger and more beautiful with time and care. As evening approached, the trio had a solid plan in place. Martha would handle the production side, teaching Olivia her techniques. Olivia would manage design and marketing, leveraging her industry contacts who had remained loyal despite the scandal. Jack offered to handle the financial side, putting his teaching skills to use in managing the books and planning their growth. Before they called it a night, Martha insisted on a small celebration. She pulled out a bottle of sparkling cider she'd been saving for a special occasion. Raising her glass, Martha said, "To new beginnings and patchwork dreams, may we create something as strong and beautiful as the bonds between us." As they clinked glasses, Olivia felt a warmth spread through her chest. For the first time since her world had turned upside down, she felt truly hopeful about the future. Later, as Olivia and Jack walked home hand in hand, the city lights twinkling around them, Olivia couldn't help but smile. "You know," she said, looking up at Jack, "a few weeks ago, I thought I'd lost everything, but now I realize I've gained so much more. A new purpose, a chance to make a real difference, and most importantly, a true family." Jack squeezed her hand, his eyes shining with love and pride. "You've always had that strength inside you, Liv. I'm just glad you can finally see it too." As they reached their apartment, Olivia paused, taking in the night sky. The future was still uncertain, full of challenges and hard work. But for the first time in her life, she felt ready to face it head-on, with people who truly cared by her side. Tomorrow would bring the first steps of their new journey, and Olivia couldn't wait to begin. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity as Olivia, Jack, and Martha threw themselves into bringing Patchwork Dreams to life. Martha's small apartment had been transformed into a makeshift workshop, with fabric swatches, sketches, and sewing supplies covering every available surface. One sunny afternoon, Olivia sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by colorful scraps of fabric. She was piecing together a design for their first collection, her fingers nimbly arranging the patches into intricate patterns. "How's it coming along?" Jack asked, peering over her shoulder. Olivia held up the design, A patchwork jacket that seamlessly blended Martha's traditional quilting techniques with modern sleek lines. "What do you think? Too bold?" Jack grinned. "It's perfect. It's exactly what Patchwork Dreams is all about, blending the old with the new." From the corner of the room, where she was working at her sewing machine, Martha chimed in. "It's lovely, dear. You've really got an eye for this." Olivia beamed at the praise. She'd spent years in the fashion industry, but this was the first time she felt truly creative, truly passionate about what she was designing. As the day wore on, they tackled different aspects of their fledgling business. Jack pored over spreadsheets, working out budgets and projections. Martha taught Olivia the finer points of hand stitching, her patience seemingly endless as Olivia fumbled with the needle. "It's all about practice," Martha reassured her. "You'll be a pro in no time." By evening, they had completed their first prototype, the patchwork jacket Olivia had designed earlier. As Martha helped her try it on, Olivia caught sight of herself in the mirror and gasped. It's beautiful," she whispered, running her hands over the carefully stitched seams. Jack stood behind her, his eyes shining with pride. "You both did an amazing job. This is going to be a hit, I can feel it." As they admired their handiwork, there was a knock at the door. Jack went to answer it, returning with a puzzled expression and a large envelope in his hand. "It's for you, Liv," he said, handing it over. "No return address." Curious, Olivia opened the envelope. Inside was a letter and a small, worn photograph. As she read the letter, her eyes widened in surprise. "It's from my grandmother," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "My father's mother. I never knew her. Dad always said she died when he was young." Martha and Jack exchanged concerned glances as Olivia continued reading, her hands trembling slightly. "She's alive," Olivia said, looking up at them in shock. "She's been alive all this time. Dad lied about her death because she disapproved of his lifestyle, of the way he was running the business." Jack put a comforting arm around her shoulders. "What else does she say?" Olivia scanned the letter. "She says she's been following the news about the scandal. She wants to meet me, to explain everything." Martha leaned in, her expression gentle. "How do you feel about that, dear?" Olivia looked at the photograph, a faded image of a young woman with her father as a child. She saw echoes of herself in the woman's features. I think I want to meet her," Olivia said slowly. "There's so much I don't know about my family, about where I come from. Maybe she can help me understand." Jack nodded supportively. "If that's what you want, we're here for you. Do you want us to come with you when you meet her?" Olivia smiled gratefully. "Thanks, but I think this is something I need to do on my own, at least for the first meeting." As the reality of this new development sank in, Olivia found herself filled with a mix of emotions: curiosity, apprehension, and a glimmer of hope. Could this connection to her past help her navigate her future? Martha broke the thoughtful silence. "Well, this calls for a cup of tea. And while we drink, why don't you tell us more about this collection you're planning?" Grateful for the distraction, Olivia launched into an explanation of her ideas, her enthusiasm growing with each word. As she talked, she realized that despite the unexpected turn of events, she felt grounded. The jacket she wore, a physical manifestation of their shared dream, reminded her of how far she'd come and the strength she'd found in her new family. As night fell, Olivia left Martha's apartment with the letter tucked safely in her bag and the prototype jacket draped over her arm. Tomorrow would bring new challenges: a meeting with her long-lost grandmother, continued work on their collection, and the ongoing legal proceedings. But for now, wrapped in the warmth of the jacket and the love of her chosen family, Olivia felt ready to face whatever came her way. The morning of Olivia's meeting with her grandmother dawned bright and clear. She stood in front of her mirror, adjusting the patchwork dreams jacket she had decided to wear. It felt like armor, a reminder of her new path and the strength she had found. "You sure you don't want me to come with you?" Jack asked, his concern evident in his voice. Olivia smiled, reaching out to squeeze his hand. "I'm sure. This is something I need to do on my own, but thank you for offering." With a deep breath, she headed out, following the address provided in the letter. It led her to a quaint brownstone in a quiet neighborhood, a far cry from the opulent mansions she had grown up around. Olivia hesitated at the front door, her hand poised to knock. Just as she was gathering her courage, the door swung open, revealing an elegant older woman with familiar eyes, her grandmother, Evelyn Sinclair. "Olivia," Evelyn said softly, her voice warm. "I'd know you anywhere. You look just like your father did at your age." Overwhelmed by emotion, Olivia found herself enveloped in a gentle hug. As they pulled apart, Evelyn's eyes fell on Olivia's jacket. "What a beautiful piece," she remarked, running her fingers over the intricate patchwork. "Did you make this?" Olivia nodded, a spark of pride cutting through her nervousness. "Yes, it's part of a new business I'm starting with my fiancé's mother." Evelyn's eyes twinkled. "Well, you must tell me all about it. Come in, dear. We have so much to talk about." Inside, the house was cozy and filled with books and handmade quilts. As they settled in the living room with cups of tea, Olivia found herself relaxing despite the surreal nature of the situation. "I suppose you have many questions," Evelyn began. "Where to start? Your father and I had a falling out many years ago. I didn't approve of the way he was running the family business, cutting corners for profit. When I confronted him, things got heated. He told me if I couldn't support his choices, I was no longer welcome in his life." Olivia listened, her heart aching for the years of separation, the family history she had never known. "But why did he tell everyone you were dead?" Evelyn sighed. "I suspect it was easier for him than admitting the truth. Your father, he always cared too much about appearances." As they talked, Olivia learned about her family's true history. The Sinclairs had started as a small, ethical textile business generations ago. Over time, with her father at the helm, it had morphed into the profit-driven empire that had recently crumbled. "I've been following the news," Evelyn said gently. "How are you holding up, dear?" Olivia took a deep breath. "It's been, challenging, but in a way it's also been liberating. I'm building something new, something I can be proud of." She went on to explain about Patchwork Dreams, her voice growing animated as she described their vision for ethical, sustainable fashion. Evelyn listened intently, her eyes shining with interest and pride. "You know," Evelyn said when Olivia finished, "I think you've found your way back to our family's true legacy without even realizing it. Your great-great-grandmother started our family business with nothing but a sewing machine and a dream of creating beautiful, lasting garments." Olivia felt a surge of connection to this history she'd never known. "I had no idea. Dad never talked about the family's past." Evelyn nodded sadly. "He was always focused on the future, on growth at any cost. But it seems you've rediscovered our roots." As the afternoon wore on, Evelyn shared old family photos and stories, filling in the gaps of Olivia's heritage. With each tale, Olivia felt a growing sense of belonging, of understanding where she came from. Before she left, Evelyn disappeared into another room, returning with a small wooden box. "I want you to have this," she said, placing it in Olivia's hands. "It belonged to your great-great-grandmother. I think she would have wanted you to have it, to inspire your new venture." Olivia opened the box with trembling hands. Inside was a collection of antique sewing notions, delicate scissors, mother-of-pearl buttons, and a beautifully crafted thimble. "Thank you," Olivia whispered, tears pricking her eyes. "This means so much." As they said their goodbyes, Evelyn hugged Olivia tightly. "I'm so proud of you, dear. You're bringing honor back to the Sinclair name in a way your father never could." Stepping out into the late afternoon sun, Olivia felt lighter, as if a missing piece of herself had finally clicked into place. She couldn't wait to share everything she'd learned with Jack and Martha, to incorporate this newfound heritage into Patchwork Dreams. As she made her way home, the wooden box tucked safely in her bag, Olivia realized that sometimes, Moving forward meant reconnecting with the past. She had started this journey feeling lost, but now she felt grounded in a rich history and excited for the future she was creating, stitch by stitch. The weeks following Olivia's meeting with her grandmother flew by in a whirlwind of activity. Patchwork Dreams was gaining momentum, with their first collection nearly ready for launch. The small apartment-turned-workshop buzzed with energy as Olivia, Jack, and Martha put the finishing touches on their designs. One crisp autumn morning, Olivia sat at the workstation, carefully stitching delicate mother-of-pearl buttons onto a jacket. These were from the box her grandmother had given her, each one a tiny connection to her family's true legacy. "How's it coming along?" Martha asked, peering over Olivia's shoulder. Olivia held up the jacket, a smile playing on her lips. "I think it's perfect. These buttons add just the right touch of history and elegance." Martha nodded approvingly. "It's beautiful, dear. You've really found your calling." As they admired the piece, Jack burst into the room, his face alight with excitement. "Great news!" he exclaimed. "I just got off the phone with that boutique owner I told you about. They want to feature Patchwork Dreams in their fall showcase." Olivia and Martha exchanged thrilled glances. This was the break they had been hoping for, a chance to introduce their brand to a wider audience. "That's wonderful, Jack," Olivia said, giving him a quick hug. "When is the showcase?" 2 weeks from now," Jack replied. "They want us to bring our entire collection. It's a big opportunity." Martha clapped her hands together. "Well, we'd better get to work then. We've got a lot to do in a short time." The next fortnight was a blur of activity. Days blended into nights as they worked tirelessly to perfect every piece. Olivia found herself drawing on everything she'd learned, from her years in high fashion to the traditional techniques Martha had taught her, and even incorporating elements inspired by the stories her grandmother had shared. As the day of the showcase approached, an unexpected call came. It was Olivia's lawyer, Mr. Goldstein. "Miss Sinclair," he said, his voice serious, "I wanted to give you a heads up. The verdict in your parents' case will be announced tomorrow morning." Olivia felt her stomach drop. With all the excitement of Patchwork Dreams, she had almost forgotten about the ongoing legal proceedings. "Thank you for letting me know," she managed to say, her mind racing. After hanging up, she shared the news with Jack and Martha. Their concerned faces mirrored her own conflicted feelings. "Oh, sweetheart," Martha said softly, pulling Olivia into a hug. "Whatever happens, we're here for you." Jack nodded in agreement. "Do you want us to go with you to hear the verdict?" Olivia took a deep breath, steeling herself. "No, I think I need to do this on my own. But would you mind if we worked late tonight? I could use the distraction." Understanding shone in their eyes as they agreed. The night passed in a flurry of last-minute adjustments and quiet conversation, the impending verdict hanging over them like a shadow. Morning came too quickly. Olivia found herself standing outside the courthouse, her heart pounding. As she entered the courtroom, she caught sight of her parents. They looked smaller somehow, diminished by the weight of their actions. The judge's voice rang out, clear and firm, as he delivered the verdict. Guilty on all counts. The sentence, significant prison time and hefty fines. Olivia sat in stunned silence as the courtroom erupted into a flurry of activity. She watched as her parents were led away, their eyes meeting hers for a brief moment. In that glance, she saw a mix of regret, shame, and something else. A flicker of pride. Outside, she found herself surrounded by reporters clamoring for a statement. Taking a deep breath, Olivia stepped up to the microphones. "The actions of Sinclair Enterprises have hurt many people," she began, her voice steady. "While I cannot undo that harm, I am committed to moving forward in a way that honors the true legacy of my family, one of ethical business practices and quality craftsmanship." With that, she stepped away, ignoring the shouted questions that followed her. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jack. "We're here if you need us. Love you." A wave of gratitude washed over her. Yes, one chapter of her life had definitively closed today, but another, filled with promise and purpose, was just beginning. As Olivia made her way back to the workshop, her mind was already turning to the showcase tomorrow. There would be time later to process the verdict, to grapple with its implications. For now, she had a dream to build, stitch by loving stitch. Entering the apartment, she was greeted by the sight of Jack and Martha, surrounded by their creations. Their faces lit up as she walked in, a silent offering of support and love. "Ready to change the fashion world?" Jack asked, a gentle smile on his face. Olivia nodded, feeling a surge of determination. "More than ever," she replied, picking up a needle. "Let's make patchwork dreams a reality." The day of the showcase arrived, bringing with it a mix of nervous energy and excitement. Olivia, Jack, and Martha arrived at the boutique early, carefully arranging their collection on the sleek display racks. Each piece told a story of tradition, of renewal, of dreams stitched into reality. As the first guests began to arrive, Olivia felt a flutter of anxiety in her stomach. This was it, the moment patchwork dreams would be introduced to the world. She smoothed down her own creation, a stunning patchwork dress that incorporated elements from every stage of her journey. "You look beautiful," Jack whispered, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. "They're going to love it." Martha nodded in agreement, her eyes shining with pride. "Remember, dear, each of these pieces carries a part of us. Let them speak for themselves." As the boutique filled with fashion enthusiasts, buyers, and journalists, Olivia found herself swept up in a whirlwind of introductions and explanations. To her delight, people were genuinely intrigued by the story behind patchwork dreams. "So you're telling me each piece is handcrafted?" a well-known fashion blogger asked, running her fingers over a meticulously stitched jacket. Olivia nodded, launching into an explanation of their sustainable practices and the blend of traditional and modern techniques. As she spoke, she could see the blogger's eyes light up with interest. Across the room, Martha was deep in conversation with a group of older women, explaining the intricate quilting patterns and their significance. Jack, meanwhile, was fielding questions about the business model from a pair of intrigued investors. As the evening wore on, Olivia found herself approached by a familiar face, her grandmother, Evelyn. "I hope you don't mind me crashing the party," Evelyn said with a warm smile. "I couldn't miss seeing your dream come to life." Olivia felt tears prick her eyes as she hugged her grandmother. "I'm so glad you're here. None of this would have been possible without you." Evelyn shook her head. "You did this, my dear. You took our family's legacy and transformed it into something beautiful and meaningful." As they stood together, admiring the collection, a hush fell over the crowd. The boutique owner stepped forward, microphone in hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, "I am thrilled to share that Patchwork Dreams will be our featured designer for the upcoming season. Their unique blend of tradition and innovation is exactly what we've been looking for." The room erupted in applause. Olivia felt Jack's arm wrap around her waist as Martha clutched her hand. They had done it. Their dream was becoming a reality. As the showcase wound down, Olivia found a moment of quiet. She stepped outside, taking in the cool night air. The past year had been a whirlwind, from the heights of privilege to the depths of scandal, and now to this new beginning. She thought of her parents serving their sentences. While she couldn't condone their actions, she had found a way to honor the true spirit of her family's legacy. Perhaps in time, there would be room for healing and reconciliation. Jack joined her outside, wrapping a warm jacket around her shoulders. "Penny, for your thoughts?" Olivia smiled, leaning into him. "I was just thinking about how much has changed. A year ago, I thought I had it all figured out. Now I realize I was just scratching the surface." "Do you ever regret it?" Jack asked softly. "The life you left behind?" Olivia shook her head. "Not for a second. That life was built on illusions. What we've created together, this is real." As they stood there, Martha and Evelyn joined them, each carrying flutes of champagne. "A toast," Evelyn proposed, "to new beginnings, to family, both born and chosen, and to dreams stitched into reality." They clinked glasses, the sound ringing out clear in the night air. As Olivia looked at the faces around her, Jack's love, Martha's kindness, Evelyn's wisdom, she felt a profound sense of belonging. The journey hadn't been easy. There had been moments of doubt, of fear, of loss. But through it all, she had discovered a strength she never knew she possessed. She had found her true calling, not in the glittering world of high fashion, but in the honest work of creating something meaningful with her own two hands. As they made their way back inside to wrap up the evening, Olivia knew that this was just the beginning. There would be challenges ahead, no doubt, but with the love and support surrounding her and the passion burning bright within her, she was ready to face whatever came next. Patchwork Dreams was more than just a business. It was a testament to resilience, to the power of starting over, to the beauty that can emerge when different pieces come together to create something whole. And as Olivia looked around at the life she had stitched together, she knew that this was her happily ever after. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. Now, how about another one? To watch another nice story, just click on the video appearing on your screen.